The palace gardens were breathing with the hush of a soft Arabian twilight when Sheikh Hamdan felt something shift inside him, an unfamiliar tremor that did not belong to the ruler, the poet, or the crown prince, but to the man hidden underneath every title. He had always worn composure like armor, but that evening, beneath a sky brushed with sunset fire, he sensed a truth rising within him, a truth he had spent years outrunning. For so long, he believed strength came from control of his emotions, his decisions, his destiny. Yet as he watched her walk through the lantern-lit pathway, her presence dissolving the walls he had built, he felt an ache that was neither pain nor fear, but a humbling realization that love was not something he could command. He felt the movement in his chest like a quiet earthquake. It was not loud, but it was irreversible. Her laughter reached him before she did, soft and weightless, and it cracked something open inside him. He wondered how a single sound could unthread the prince the world knew and reveal the man he tried so hard to hide. All his life, he had been taught that vulnerability was dangerous, an open door, a loose thread, a flaw. But here, under the tender pull of her presence, he discovered that the most dangerous thing was pretending he felt nothing at all. His heart, once disciplined like a soldier, had begun to rebel. He faced battles, crises, and storms that demanded courage. Yet none shook him the way his own emotions did in that moment. He finally understood that love was not an enemy, but the only force powerful enough to expose his humanity. It was beautiful and terrifying, and he had nowhere left to run. She approached him with the gentleness of a breeze, unaware of the storm she had awakened inside him. Her eyes searched his with innocent curiosity, but he could barely meet them. Not because he was shy, but because he feared she would see the truth reflected there, the truth he had just learned himself. He spoke her name, but it came out softer than he intended, as though the syllables themselves were fragile. She smiled, and the warmth of it seeped into the cracks of his carefully sculpted composure. He wondered how a simple smile could feel like both a blessing and a surrender. For years, he had written poems about love, longing, and the unspoken wishes of the heart. But today, the verses felt different. They weren't words crafted by a poet, they were confessions rising from a place he didn't know existed. Love, he realized, wasn't his muse. It was his undoing. As she stood before him, she unknowingly held a kind of power he had never granted anyone. Not the power to command, but the power to unveil. She made him question every belief he had about strength. Maybe strength wasn't the refusal to break, but the willingness to feel. He found himself wanting to tell her everything, the fears he never voiced, the dreams he kept guarded, the emotions he buried under duty. But the words stayed trapped behind his silence. How could a man responsible for a nation confess that his greatest weakness was simply her? When the breeze shifted and carried the scent of jasmine toward them, it felt like the world was subtly urging him to speak, to step toward something he had denied for too long. He felt the weight of a decision pressing against his heart. One choice could rewrite everything. She reached out, lightly touching his sleeve, and that simple contact sent warmth flooding through him. It wasn't desire, it was recognition. His spirit, long disciplined into stillness, finally stirred. He realized then that love was not meant to weaken him, it was meant to wake him. But with awakening came fear. If love made him vulnerable, would it also make him lose control? Could he carry a crown and an exposed heart at the same time? These questions circled him like unspoken shadows, but for the first time, he felt brave enough to face them. As he stood with her in the fading glow of evening, he accepted the truth he had tried to deny. Love was his weakness, yes, but it was also his greatest form of strength. A force that shattered walls, revealed. The night deepened around them, drawing a velvet curtain over the sky as if to protect the secret moment unfolding between them. Sheikh Hamdan felt the world slow, the sounds of the palace fading until all he could hear was the pulse of his own heart. It beat with an honesty he had never allowed it before, a rhythm that declared its truth without hesitation. She stood close enough for him to sense her warmth, and in that closeness he realized that love did not weaken a man, it revealed the parts he had abandoned in the name of strength. They began walking along the marble path, their steps unhurried, as though time itself had surrendered to their presence. She spoke to him about simple things, the wind, the moonlight, the fragrance of the night, and he listened as though every word was sacred scripture. For the first time in years, the pressure of leadership, the weight of responsibilities, the unending expectations felt distant, almost muted. She made space in his soul where he had never dared to build any. And he found it impossible to ignore how naturally she fit into the quiet corners of his heart. He glanced at her, catching the peaceful glow on her face as the lanterns reflected in her eyes. It struck him with overwhelming clarity that love did not demand permission. It arrived, it rooted itself, and it reshaped everything in its path. He wondered if she knew that her presence had stirred something in him he could not retreat from. He wondered if she sensed the shift, the unraveling, the awakening. Yet she walked beside him with humility, as though unaware of the small miracle she had become in his life. When they reached the edge of the garden, the city lights of Dubai shimmered like a necklace of fallen stars. She paused, taking in the view, and he found himself watching her more than the skyline he had admired countless times. She was the only horizon that made sense to him now. He felt an unfamiliar urge to tell her that the poetry he wrote belonged to her, even before she entered his life. But instead, he caught the words in his throat, afraid that speaking them would break the fragile magic of the moment. Silence, he realized, was its own confession. She turned toward him, her expression gentle yet searching, as if she could feel the words he didn't speak. "You seem far away tonight," she whispered. He inhaled slowly, steadying himself against the rising tide of emotion. Far away? No. He had never been more present. Never more aware. Never more honest. His heart was not wandering, it was anchored in front of him. And in that instant, he understood that the greatest battles were the ones fought inside the soul, between fear and surrender, between pride and truth.